Christoph, how do I get rich? The most important question of all of them.
Well, it sounds like the most important question of all of them, right? And this week for Euzoia, I looked into the question of like, how do you get rich? And well, I think it's like many-folded. But first, maybe all of us have this feeling of like everybody else figured it out, right? Like I always hear from my friends is like, oh, like they invested, I don't know, in Bitcoin earlier than everybody else, or like they saw Nvidia stock before everybody else, and like if only like I would also know the tricks or also be in the WhatsApp groups. I had a discussion with somebody who was then in this Facebook group called Highly Speculative Investment Advice. It's like clearly like no good things are going to come from this, no? But I think the way we all feel like this is because of course, it's survivorship bias, right? Like you only hear the good stories. You never hear the bad stories where like somebody bought a house and like it lost half of its value. Somebody like didn't buy Nvidia when it was small, but bought, I don't know, some random stock while it was at the top. And then just, actually, I hear that from my friends sometimes. And like secretly, I'm like, I'm happy I'm not stock picking. But at least it's less in the present, right? But let's assume you actually want to know how to maximize money, get rich, right? I think then the next thing to be very wary of is like, what do you actually optimize for? It's like often I think you're like, I want to get rich, and when I'm rich, then I'm happy, right? If you actually optimize for happiness, then you very quickly know that, happiness kind of follows this like logarithmic relationship with money. So like, sure, initially, as you get more, you get happier, but the more you get, like it's just diminishing returns, right? And this, I think, is like at odds with this very typical advice of this like fire bros, like maybe also some girls, like the financial independence, retire early, right? Like their premise is basically like really grind hard in your 30s and 20s and like make as much money as you can and save as much money as you can, right? So that afterwards, like I have one friend, like his fire age is like 40, but maybe it's later, right? Like when you then reach this, then you can kind of enjoy life.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem there is you kind of optimize for like lots of money later, whereas you could like you sacrifice a lot of present state happiness. And like, first of all, I looked into the studies, like the evidence of actually getting happy when you retire is like very mixed. Like, yes, if you do it voluntarily, and you had a very stressful job before, you get a bit happier. But like that stressful job you only have because you want to retire early, right? Like, so if you just avoid the stressful job in the first place, plus like retiring early, like often leads to you not being part of a community anymore. So my advice would be, first of all, don't only optimize for making a lot of money, right? Optimize for your happiness. That would then mean retire at a normal age, and just invest consistently from an early age. So you still, make all the, like FIRE talks about a lot of good things, right? Like make use of this, invest early, invest smartly. But common advice seems to be like, if you start investing early and invest like roughly 15% every month, every year, then that allows you to keep living the lifestyle you're living right now, which is this idea of like, you optimize happiness, right? You don't want more later. You don't want you just want to kind of keep your current state when you retire at like at a normal age. Then assuming you're doing this, how do you get there, right? Like the obvious advice is, you've heard this 100 times before, buy ETFs. Like ETFs are like this great concept where you can track a collection of stocks, right? Like picking individual stocks is like gambling. You take like a lot of risk, and because you have this like logarithmic relationship with happiness, that means that yes, maybe you earn big, but you might as well also just lose everything, and losing hurts much more than winning. So you don't want this, right? You want to diversify. ETFs allow you to diversify at a very low cost. The only choice then is, do you want ETFs that are like global? That way you kind of diversify across everything, or you want to stay within your local area, right? For example, you might want to get I live in the Netherlands. I might want to get European ETFs because those are more related to the inflation we have here locally. If we have a lot of inflation here, then that kind of tracks it. That kind of de-risks me locally. But then also I might get less exposure to all the growth from US stocks right now, right? So maybe you want to kind of even diversify within the ETFs. And then the next step in diversification is like, well, ETFs on average seem to have the highest return in terms of like things you can buy as an individual. But the stock market as a whole can just kind of tank, and then ETFs don't help you, right? So you want also to invest in assets that are uncorrelated to stocks. And this historically have been like gold, for example, maybe real estate, maybe kind of bonds. I say historically here because like this is not financial advice, right? Like do your own research. We always thought bonds and stocks are uncorrelated and it's great to have some of both. And then like a few years ago, both kind of had an issue together because I can't explain the exact details, but like kind of inflation ate into both, right? So but the key takeaway here is like, don't gamble, right? Like no stock picking, no prediction markets, no poker playing, or like only gamble with like money you're happy to lose, and consistently put 10 to 15% in ETFs, diversify with something else, and then you're kind of set on that front. The next thing to do is, I think what often gets overlooked is that a lot of investment advice written online is either US centric or just very generic. But everybody lives in like a local context, and your local government would have set up like a lot of very specific incentives that you just have to be aware of. Right? In the US, that's like 401ks. How do you use 401ks? Like how to use like tax loss harvesting, like all these very specific things. I live in the Netherlands, and here there's massive government incentives on buying houses that you don't really have somewhere else, right? Cover buying houses in the next post. Stay tuned. But and then in Germany, for example, yet another thing, it's like a completely different market, right? There's different instruments, a bit of private market stuff. So really do your own research in this one, right? We can't cover all geographies, but it definitely pays off to understand all the incentives you have locally. I don't know, are you like aware of any in the UK? So sorry
Yeah.
for putting you on the spot there, but
In the UK, we have, it's called an ISA. It's like a tax-free ISA. You can put up to UK a year in, I think, and then everything you earn from that is tax-free. But, I would recommend for the listener to ask AI. I live in this area, this region. What's the best vehicle, like way for me to invest? Because it makes a big difference. These tax breaks and like different opportunities. So definitely like do your own research and like make sure you localize it.
yeah, 100%. All right. So this is like the boring advice, right? It's like you won't get rich like this unless like you have a super high paying job, but you also won't get poor like this. And that's the whole point, right? Like money won't make you happy. Well, it does, but like only very, very limited amount. So you kind of want to invest safely so you kind of can stay on this level and then get your happiness from like all kinds of other levels. However, if you now still want to try to get rich, you basically have to take bets. If you look at like how are most of the self-made millionaires, very few of them were the doctors or the lawyers who got a prestigious job and like got a salary, right? Like this is not how it works. And most people also didn't get it by like investing in ETFs. Otherwise we'd all be millionaires, right? Like you, in a way, only get high reward from high risk. And for this, you have to be ready and prepared to take risk. That also means you should probably only do this if you can afford it. Like, as I said before, like only gamble with anything you can afford to lose. Definitely like build buffers before you do any of this, right? But if you want to do this and you want to be smart about this, the first one is take bets, right? And betting could be with your money or with your time, right? Like I am right now taking a bet by starting a startup, which like might be successful or not. But I'm basically betting my time on this, right? I could also use my time and some of my money to get a job and earn like proper money. But your own time and money is of course limited. The next step is then to leverage other people's time and money, right? Like because that way you kind of increase the bet size. And even if you don't get all of the outcomes then because you're also playing with somebody else's time and money, if you structure it well, you kind of get both more from it if it works than if you kind of do it individually. One way of doing this is just get investors in your business if you're starting a business, right? Like I think the other very common way is kind of play with other people's money, right? This is called working in a hedge fund or in finance. And this could also be if you are some kind of like notary or something where like basically what you're doing correlates to the value of the thing you're playing with. Again, this varies, but I guess most self-made people either started a business and there leveraged other people's money who invested in it, or work in finance and again, there leverage other people's money to make profits on it.
Yeah. I
The
heard,
last,
yeah.
please go.
I had if you're doing investing, what like the advice I read online, is to use 1% of your investment money for like high risk bets, like whatever that would be. I don't know, like meme coins or like stock picking or something like that. That way, it's a very small amount of your portfolio, but like maybe you have like a really big upside if something like goes X or something like that.
Yeah, I guess the risk. Yeah, but yeah, I think definitely if you can afford it, try it. Maybe don't go the rabbit hole of like Take 1%, it's gone. You take the next percent, it's gone. You take the next percent, it's gone. And by the end, it's all gone. If you do it out of your salary, 1% per month, I think that's
Yeah.
very safe to try doing. Yeah, the last point I just wanted to make on these bets is the biggest ones are basically you're very unlikely if you're betting against global markets. If you pick a stock, like you're not betting against the average, you're betting against the smartest person out there who's putting money on this. This is why markets are like usually somewhat optimal. Let's hope so.
Mm-hmm.
So like prediction market stocks, like all these are public things that are very hard to win against unless you have access to knowledge that other people don't have. That's usually knowledge that's not on the internet that you kind of saw in a YouTube video, right? Like, so you want opportunity to place bets on something that's not in the public market, right? And for this, you need to get access. This could be being in communities where you get kind of access to deal flow that you otherwise wouldn't get, right? Like maybe because you just live in Silicon Valley and like there's like a lot of stuff going on there that you just don't see out of there, right? Like maybe that's because you go to a prestigious university and you get access to co-founders there or to investors that you otherwise wouldn't see. And maybe that's because, yeah, you're just in this super nerdy community that came up with Bitcoin and you just happen to be there and like now can put a bet on it before everybody else learns about it, right? Like, but this is, I guess, what we'll later cover in our section on work about like increasing your surface area of luck. It's like just being in these communities and like actively exposing yourself to these kind of things helps. It's not a guarantee that you will then get access to these kind of things, but you can kind of open your surface area for maybe hopefully getting across some of those. And then you just need the capital and time to jump on it when it happens.
Amazing. Great. Any other tips for getting rich?
No, I think that's it. I'm not rich yet, so like definitely don't take this advice from me. But this is what I could gobble together from the internets and some AIs.
But your startup, maybe in 1 to 2 years, you'll be exiting your startup and you will be rich.
Well, then I'll definitely repost this video and people can learn how I did it.
Okay, amazing. Well, that was Euzoia on how to get rich. And thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week. Is there a new topic next week?
It'll be the last one on our money series, and it'll be about if you should buy a house or not, because I think for most people out there, that's like the biggest financial decision they ever take in their lives. So we wanted to take a whole episode on that.
Amazing.
Cool. Talk next week.